Hi, this is Siofra Bradigan, and this is Siofra's Magic Alcove. So, I've been mulling over what I'd like to talk about this week, and I'm thinking, I'm not sure what I'm going to call this video, but I want to talk about the ways in which we talk to ourselves and stop ourselves from being able to succeed because of negative self-talk or um, I'm not sure exactly what what exactly the subject is, but um, so thinking of some examples, and I got permission from Ian to share this example with you guys. When we were first together, when we first moved out to this area, uh, Ian did a lot of negative self-talk. We're talking, I'm not worth anything. I don't know why anyone would love me. I don't know why you love me. Why do you love me? Um, why am I the person that you want to be with? I'm not making enough money. I mean, it was like an endless list, a litany of negative reinforcements. And he would be doing this just before going to sleep at night. We would be, in bed, getting ready to go to sleep, and he'd start launching into this whole I'm a terrible person kind of stuff. And, I tried, softly to try and dissuade him from continuing along in those lines by saying things like, it's not a good idea to say negative things like that to yourself just before you're going to sleep because you're like embedding it straight into your subconscious. It's just like, you're at a vulnerable point in the day, you're going to become unconscious in a few minutes, one hopes. And this is like a really bad time. But yeah, it kept on happening. And then he started doing it during the day. So it was like nonstop, just constantly berating himself for this or that and wondering why anybody would want to be with him and talking about what he thought was wrong with him and so forth. And I started getting very annoyed, quite annoyed actually. And one night it suddenly came to me and I looked at him and I said, I wouldn't let anyone else talk about you like that. What makes you think I'm going to let you talk about you like that? You are talking about the man I love. And he kind of looked at me like, ha, never thought of it that way. Um, and then I said, you know what? I'm going to buy a Nerf bat. And the next time you're mean to yourself, I'm going to beat you with it. Okay? Just letting you know up front so you know it's coming. And he is like, yeah, right. Okay. So a couple days go by. We're in a store, a local shop, uh, and he starts on the same old list of things that are wrong with him and why he shouldn't, whatever. And so we were in the store and he's doing this, and I looked at him. I says, I'm going to go find and see if they have a Nerf bat right now. And it was close enough to Christmas time, I guess. But anyway, they had it in the toy section. They had a Nerf bat there. I said, I've been looking for you. So I bought it and I showed it to him. And I said, I'm buying this Nerf bat. I'm going to put it next to the bed. And the next time you're mean to yourself, I'm going to beat you with this, okay? And he's like, yeah, right, okay. All right. So I took it home, put it next to the bed. A couple of days go by, and he starts in on himself again. And I've had it up to here, like, not okay. And so I leaped out of bed and I grabbed the Nerf bat and I jumped up on top of the bed with the Nerf bat and I started beating him with it, screaming, "Stop being mean to the man I love." And he was laughing. he, he really liked that. most glorious thing you'd ever seen was me beating him with a Nerf bat. And it actually worked. It started a positive change, a process, where he started to become more conscious of how he was talking to himself, about himself. And that's the thing. It's like if we're going to be successful at this path, I think one of the important things we need to learn is how to take care of ourselves and how to recognize when we're being mean to our own self. I mean, people are more likely to be generous and kind and forgiving to a total stranger than they are to themselves, because they know all the little things that have gone on in their head. And we're probably the most critical of our own actions, most suspect of our own motivations, and questioning our value, and that doesn't help us at all. It is extremely self-sabotaging, and we need to learn how to listen to what we're actually saying to people about who we are and saying to ourselves by how we talk about it. So that is a challenge. There's no doubt about it. It takes a while to get to that point, maybe an entire lifetime, who knows. But becoming aware of the fact that it's an important thing for you to listen to, that is going to start the process of helping your progress and everything else that you're doing. I think that this is part of shadow work as well as part of ritual preparedness. And my most recent example that I'm quite pleased with was in October. Actually, yeah, I guess it was the beginning of October of last year. And I was just letting my granddaughter know what was happening. And, I was scheduled for foot surgery, and I'd gotten a letter from an attorney's office where they were going to auction the building that I had my office in, and COVID hit my office pretty hard. There's no doubt about it. I lost a lot of clients, and a lot of them didn't come back after restrictions were lifted. And so paying for an office, like I'm paying this much money a month to keep an office space available for very few clients at this point. So it's basically, I have some money that I have saved, and it's just being doled out every month to go to this office. And once I have my foot surgery, I'm not going to be able to work for several weeks because I have to wait for the stitches to come out. I can't drive, and this is going to be trauma to my body, and I need to recover. And as I'm telling my granddaughter about what's happening, I'm hearing what I'm saying, and I suddenly go like, well, obviously I need to move out of my office before my foot surgery. And that was it. I made the decision instantly, or so it seemed. It's not really instant because all these things have been leading up. I just hadn't put them all together and realized this is an action that should be taken. But I did it because I heard myself. I heard what I was saying. So that's the challenge, is to listen to what you're saying. Become consciously aware, even if it's only for, a few times during the day, of how you're talking about yourself to other people, and also just what you're saying about what's happening in your life. Hear your own words. Imagine that if you heard this from a total stranger and they were explaining the situation to you about what was going on, but it was your life that they were explaining, and you heard it from this external viewpoint. What would your suggestion be to them? What would you say to them? How would you encourage them? How would you recommend They proceed in whatever the situation might be. And really watch that negative self-talk kind of stuff where you're putting yourself down, like, you're not good enough, and you don't deserve this. And although there are sometimes truth to the idea that just thinking you deserve whatever you want, that's not how it really works, there's also truth to the notion that if you keep telling yourself you don't deserve something, you're never going to actually get it, because the self-fulfilling prophecy, um, it becomes a big weight around your energy field. And we know that the universe speaks in energetic waves. We put out who we are, what we think, how we feel, what's happening to us, what we want, where we want to go, who we want to meet, in the actions that we take, the energy that we put forth, and the words that we use, because words are defining and powerful. So choosing what we say and how we feel and what we think about ourselves is important. It's not an overnight thing. It doesn't happen instantaneously. But if you don't believe that you deserve to have a happy life, you don't need to know what that happy life is supposed to look like. That's, I think, part of the trick, that we often believe that in order for us to get a happy life, we have to imagine exactly what it is. But that's not necessarily true. It doesn't have to be a well-defined, like, your happy life doesn't have to be, finding the right person, having children, buying a house, getting a good job, having good friends. That could be one happy life. But there's so many other possibilities and opportunities out there that the universe has. They're just sort of lying around like jewels in a forest waiting to be found, that it's not important, in my opinion, to try and over-define and specify exactly what it is we want. It's more important to allow ourselves to be ready for and feel worthy of having whatever a happy life turns out to be for us. we get a lot of dissatisfaction when we're trying to, like, have a vision of this is what we want to accomplish, and we have our goals all set up, our vision board and everything else that's just there, and we've tackled all that and put that out there, and that's what we want. And but it's not always the best way. I have another personal story along those lines. When Ian and I first met, actually, the before we got together, before we went on our first date, our first accidental date, Ian had this individual named Fred, who he had sort of taken under his wing, and he was trying to help him to not make a huge mistake, because Fred wanted someone to magically kill his ex-wife. I mean, that was like his whole thing was to try to get someone to do this for him, because he was sure that that would make him happy. But that wasn't all that Fred did. We were on our way to summer solstice celebration, so in June, and meeting a group of people in a parking lot in Ashland at the grocery store that were supposed to then take us to where the event was supposed to be. So I was all ready for a pagan celebration, which did not happen because no one ever showed up and no one told us why. We never did find that out. But that was the time when we ended up on Mount Ashland at the Buddhist temple, which was a very interesting experience. So on the ride back from that, I happened to be in the back seat with Fred. And Fred has a sheet. He has written up the qualities of what he wants in a woman. and he's showing me his list. And we're talking very specific things like the size of her breasts, the number of orgasms she should have, how many times a day she should do this or want to have sex with him. And we're talking, this guy is not a catch. He is not. He is not in any imaginary universe close to like one would swoon over him as soon as seeing him. He's average or less than average, but he's average at least. Um, Apparently delusions of grandeur. And I'm looking at this list, and it is a long list, and I see the breast size, and I feel quite relieved because I don't qualify. I'm like, okay, good. I'm not the one he's looking for. And he gives me a silver dollar and asks me to put it on my altar and pray for him to find the right person. I'm like, okay, sure. It's not going to be me. That's a fact. And find out later that he had smothered the coin with pheromones in, in an attempt to, I guess, glamour me or something, which of course didn't work because I was seriously not interested. But it's a good example of going overboard in deciding what it is that you want to have. He took that information, the idea of that information, and kind of went to what I would consider an extreme level. So it's sort of a conundrum because he's trying to tell himself that he's worthy of having this amazing woman who apparently has no mind of her own. That's another issue altogether. But who will just be, there for him and to serve him and whatnot, which is a different message. But he's trying to tell himself that he deserves this, I guess. Except it's the wrong thing. So that's kind of what I'm talking about here. And listen to the things you say you can't do. Granddaughter is going through another rough patch right now. And I said something to her just last night. And I said, we're trying to support you the best way so that you can achieve a happy, fulfilling life in the future. And she was like, that's not going to happen. It was very clear from the sound she made, from the look she gave, that she did not believe in the possibility of that, which is a problem because that's an example. It's like she is blocking her potential to be able to have something because of all the negative experiences that she's had in her life that have told her that this is what life is. She can't imagine the possibility of a life that doesn't have that in it. Therefore, she can't have a different kind of life. She can only have the life that she has had up till now. And that is supposed to be one of the things that magic is about. The taking personal responsibility for your own actions also includes taking personal responsibility for your own development, for your progress, for improving yourself and your circumstances, for becoming a better version of who you are and becoming a version of what you want to be. I'm certainly not perfect, and I know this, and communication is sometimes tricky, and we hear things through our own filters when someone tells us something. But it's usually easier for us to hear someone else doing that to themselves than it is for us to hear ourselves doing that to us. And that's what this is about, the exercise of listening to your own voice and your own words, and then looking at that and saying, is this really true? Is this really fair? Because learning to love yourself and forgiving yourself for not being perfect, being okay with making mistakes, this is part of becoming a more developed person. And I know how hard that can be because, being perfect was definitely one of my survival tactics. It's one of the things I figured if I could be perfect, then everything would be fine and nothing bad could happen, because if you are perfection and perfect, everything around you is perfect, and then everyone around you is perfect, and then all circumstances are perfect, and there's no conflict, there's no strife, there's no yelling, there's no torture, but those things still happen. So clearly it was my fault because I wasn't really perfect enough, and the self-talk was pretty bad. Ian tells me that Barden talks about this in his first book, maybe even his first step, that this is part of that process of identifying what you're doing, how you're thinking, and starting to get some control over your own thought processes. But if you don't know that you have them and what they are, there's nothing you can do. The first step is recognizing and acknowledging that these are the things that I am doing to myself, and think about if someone else was doing the same thing that you're doing to yourself to you from the outside, how would you feel? And have empathy for you because you deserve an empathetic, kind view, someone who cares about you and puts you first. And we have this ingrained in our society, in a lot of different societies, probably not just the one I'm familiar with, that the idea of service means sacrifice, and that is the definition. If you're going to be a good person, you need to sacrifice your own happiness, your own needs for others. And that's the idea of being a martyr or a saint. If you're raised around Catholicism, and even, other forms of Christianity, they push that. It's like, this life isn't for you, this life is for others. You get your reward when you're gone somewhere else. So, you'll put up with whatever you have to while you're here in order to get it somewhere else, which I don't subscribe to, at least not anymore. And I think our society would be better served if we were taking care of ourselves first and also taking care of others. When I decided to go to the prison and teach a Wicca class, as they liked to call it, even though I kept telling them I wasn't Wiccan. But hey, their limited dictionary of terms in regards to paganism, I went, okay, I just explained to every class I taught that, okay, they're calling this a Wiccan circle, but that's not what it is, because I like to be precise and not be something or pretend to be something I'm not. But I did that as just an act of service because it came along on my path. The universe kind of like arranged things in such a way where the minister was in a car accident and was seeing a massage therapist. No, he wasn't in the car accident, I was. He had something, body work issues he needed to get worked on. And so he was seeing the acupuncturist. I was in the car accident and seeing the massage therapist. The acupuncturist and the massage therapist were in the same office, and we're also a couple, sort of. And then the coincidence of him looking for somebody to serve that particular community and then mentioning it to the massage therapist, who then mentioned it to me because we knew each other well enough for her to know some of what I'm about, and then exchange of phone numbers, and then a meeting, and then that's just sort of led, and I just kept going with it because I thought, why not? I don't see a reason not to do this. This is something that would be good, and I think, for the community. This is a group of people that maybe not have much in the way of access to spiritual counseling. Are we going to just leave them to AA and all the other groups that are going up there already? And it was certainly psychologically and socially interesting to find out how the entire prison system reacted to me being there. Apparently, I don't need to do much but show up to cause discomfort and unease in waves all the way around me because I'm not fitting into the social norms that they're familiar with or expecting or like. And I don't have to do anything but stand there to be rocking the boat, which is kind of interesting how fragile they are in their own belief systems. But that's one of the ways, if you're going to be doing service, when you're ready to decide you want to give back or assist or help with the community, these things need to be done without an energetic hook attachment with them in order to be done well. Moida says that a gift not freely given is not a gift at all. And that was one of the things that she said that stuck with me really strong, because it's like a lot of times when people do something nice for someone else, they have a hidden agenda. They've decided that they're going to do this for you, you're going to do something for them. They've got it all worked out in their heads, and then when you don't comply, then they're mad and, feel cheated or whatever, or you feel pressured to go ahead and do something for them that you don't feel comfortable doing because they've given you this social pressure and put it upon you by doing something for you. And we need to get out of that tit for tat kind of thinking, where if you're going to do something for yourself or for someone else, do it without that kind of an attachment to the result. And it doesn't have to come back from the person you helped. It can come back from someone else completely anonymous, or somebody that you don't even know exists at the time that you're doing a good deed for somebody else. It's like, for its own sake. It's a good thing to do, to be kind to people for its sake as well as for yours, and it's less for them. I mean, yeah, it's kind of maybe not quite right how I'm saying that, but I think you get the idea. We have a lot of unconscious contracts in our society that are bantered about a lot. And sometimes those contracts also get into our sense of self-worth. We think that we see somebody else getting something we think we should have, and then we get envy and jealous and whatever, which is not helpful because there's enough for everybody in reality. It's just a matter of how we think of it. And the most important thing, of course, is being healthy and being yourself. But if you're going to take control of your own spiritual development, you need to decide what kind of person you want to become. And to know what kind of a person you want to become, you need to know what kind of person you are. And in order to know what kind of a person you are, you have to be honest with yourself. Think about the statements that you make. This is the way it is. All of those statements are things you should look at. Each and every one of them you should evaluate and be open to the possibility that maybe this isn't just the way it is, this is just the way it's been and the way you've experienced it. I'm trying to think if there's another more concrete example that I can dredge up in my brain to share. But that's sort of like if you can understand those things about yourself and about what you're doing, it makes you a better ritualist, a better witch, a better spellcaster. It makes it more probable that if you're designing something to help someone else, that you'll be hearing their voice and not your own, because you'll know what your voice is. You'll be able to separate those two things out instead of mixing them all together. Projection is so second nature to pretty much all of us. It takes a lot of conscious effort on everyone's part to not be projecting on other people either your needs or your desires or your fears or your anxieties or your expectations, whatever they happen to be. and see things for what they are. One of the reasons why I like nature. Nature doesn't hide its design or its intent. It is dangerous and beautiful. It is unpredictable and certain. Change is happening constantly. It's always moving. There's always forces running through it, going from one place to another, encountering things on the way. And you have to be prepared and be alert if you live in nature. I think living in the Kispiox Valley and out in the bush for 5 years helped me to develop that sense of alert expectation and not defining what's happening. I mean, if I smell something and I know what it is, then I have an idea of what the situation might be. I had, before my daughter was born, right around the time that she was born, I was still pregnant with her at this point. We lived in a small house in Williams Lake, and we didn't have a bathroom. We had an outhouse. And I got up in the morning to go to the bathroom, and there was mist hanging, droplets of mist in the air. And as I walked through the mist, I smelled a bear. It was just as clear as day that a bear had just walked through that same mist and left its scent on the air, on the water droplets. I had a rather anxious few minutes in the outhouse, paying attention and hoping that the bear wasn't coming back in my direction, but I was very aware and very alert of my environment. And I think that that's a lot of what we lose in cities and in routine. We lose that potential sudden the alertness that we need, to know what's in our environment and what's around us and so forth, and that's part of that. You're not as defining everything if you're more alert. You don't know for sure exactly what's going to happen. You walk down the street 100 times, and 100 times everything's fine. The 101 time you walk down the street, all of a sudden there's a stranger or some unexpected event, a vehicle, who knows what. And if you're complacent in yourself and not being in the moment and not being in the now, not being in your body, not being in your mind, it can end up badly for you. And I think the more we can be into that kind of state, the more we're going to get out of everything that's around us. I'm rather enjoying having a bunny rabbit. He has his own mind, and he has his own moods, and he's not me. And that's one of the things I think having relationships with other living things is important. And opening up our minds to the possibilities of all the things that might be out there. But again, the practical part, listen to yourself and listen to what you say. Hear what you're doing. Pay attention. And be kind to yourself if you fail to hear what's obvious. When it suddenly goes ta-dang, and then you look with these new understandings back at what you have been not seeing for 5 days, 5 years, 20 years. Yeah, don't do that. Don't look back there and go, I should have known this sooner. You obviously couldn't until you did. So, moving forward into the future. And we know that the past is gone and there's nothing we can do to change it, but we can learn from it and do things to change its effect on our future and our present, so we can change our path and go the direction that we want to go in, regardless of anybody who might be around us and what they think we should be doing. Because this is your life. This is not someone else's. If you're living your life for someone else, for some idea, some ideal, some potential future that may or may not happen, you're missing out on being in the one that you're in right now. So pay attention, embrace it, enjoy it, learn from it. So this is Siofra's Magic Alcove, and I'm Siofra Bradigan. Blessed be.